How are you doing today? Look, I really believe it's time we stop fooling ourselves. Have you ever told yourself, I'll slow down when things ease up, right? Or I'll rest when the busy season ends, but does that ever happen? Or maybe after the kids get out of the house or they're settled down, or maybe once my project is off my plate or off the ground and it's running well, right? We tell ourselves all those things, but the truth is, things never ease up, do they? At least most of the time they don't. And there's always this other deadline or another crisis or another person who needs you right now, needs your attention, or, you know, we keep finding these things that keep coming up. And if we keep waiting for life to slow down, eh, rest, well, it ain't gonna find us. It'll never find us. And so, what happens is you keep running until your body makes that decision for you, until actually you collapse, or you get sick, or you start snapping at those people in your life, the people that you love. And excuse me, um, that's not rest. That's keeping yourself in survival mode or in hypervigilance. That's what your nervous system starts learning to do. And I used to think that rest would find me, right? I'll finally get a chance to rest. It'll happen. And that once everything was done, I'd taken care of my to do list, I had gotten the house clean, whatever it was that I had to do at home, at work, so that I could finally take time to exhale. But I was fooling myself, just like I was talking about at the beginning, because that's what we do. We fool ourselves. We think that that time will come, and I don't care how old you are or how young you are, that time does not come unless we make it. And so I push so hard through the deadlines, trying to make the things happen, even just recently. And it's not that we don't fall back into it or that it never comes up again, because that's life. And we learn these habits, and the process is to unlearn them. That's why we call this Unlearning Break Time Live, right? And so I would push through the deadlines, through the stress, through the hypervigilance, that in a way I felt like my body started misfiring. And I'm gonna give you a perfect example. What happened one day is I was at work and I was standing there. I had these deadlines that needed to be met, things that I just had to do. There was no option of not getting them done, right? And so what happened is I was working at like hyper speed, making sure everything happened. And all of a sudden, my vision started blurring. I couldn't hear in one ear, and my right leg just wouldn't hold my weight. And I had my hand on a piece of equipment and I was standing there. And I know it was only a few seconds, but it felt like a lifetime for me. And when it came back that I could move, I made a phone call and I was told to go immediately to the emergency room. And what the doctors told me is I had had what they call a TIA, which was a mini stroke. And that's the condition that I had driven my body to. And that was my wake up call. And waiting for slowdown, waiting for that time, waiting for that period nearly cost me more than my time. And I would hate for any of you to be in that position that I found myself in at times. So maybe the real question isn't when will life slow down enough for me to rest, but maybe the question is what would happen? What would happen if you stopped waiting? If you chose to Just take that pause, even in the middle of everything, when life is going crazy, but without waiting for permission, without waiting for everything to be done. But because it was time and you knew and you were listening to your body and you knew that this was something that you needed and it was time. So, my question to you, does any of this sound familiar? Have you ever driven yourself to that point of exhaustion or collapse where you felt your body was misfiring? Have you ever told yourself, I'll rest when the dishes are done? I'll rest when this project is done. I'll rest when the kids are in bed. Whatever it is, I'll rest when. Is that something that you've ever told yourself? And if so, you're not alone. So drop yes in the comments, even if you're watching the replay, and tell me, have you ever found yourself saying, I'll rest when? And the thing is, I want to talk about chronic tiredness and what it looks like in our lives. Because a lot of times we're so used to that being a part of our life, that happening, that you don't even realize that that's what you're really dealing with. So have you ever woke up tired even after 7 to 9 hours? Exactly, majority media, exactly. So have you ever wake up tired after 7 or 9 hours of sleep, or have your body, or does your body feel on even before your feet hit the floor? You're already, your mind is going and you're thinking about everything you need to do, and the things like brushing your teeth, they're just rote, they're just things that you do automatically because your mind is thinking about everything on your to-do list and how you can make it happen and how you can time things out perfectly. Or what about that afternoon slump, and that when your body, for me it was 2 o'clock every afternoon when my body would say, I'm done. Somewhere between 2 and 4, my body would just shut down on me, and my brain wasn't working at the capacity that I needed to get the certain things that I needed done. Or what about that evening second win, or that time when you just push yourself so hard and you're tired and you're about ready to go to sleep, and then all of a sudden, close to 12 o'clock, you get your second win and you push yourself through that tiredness? Is this you? Have you ever felt this? So my question is in plain words, these are cycles. These are patterns that you're in. And so I want to name them for you so you really understand what you're going through, like decision fatigue. And that's when you have too many micro choices and your brain feels heavy and you can't pick anything. It's to the point where I don't know. I there's just one more decision that you have to make. Will somebody please make that decision for me? When it becomes hard for you, well, what are we going to eat? What do you want to eat? I don't know. Just get something. I don't care anymore, because that's just one more decision that's put on your plate that you have to do. Or what about the cycle of procrastination and distraction? You know what I mean? It's when you know the task, you know what needs to be done, you're even prepared, you think, to do it. But what happened is you start defaulting to scrolling, or to going down a rabbit hole, or doing some housework instead, because, oh, I forgot I need to do the dishes, or, oh, I need to take this out of the stove. Anything to keep you from doing what it is that you know you need to do. And that's not laziness. That's overload relief. None of these refill your energy? Have any time that you started scrolling or doing all the things that keep you from doing what you know you need to do, did you feel better? Was there any relief in that? What about when you didn't make a decision? Did you beat yourself up for not choosing? Because I know I should have. So none of these refill your energy when you deal with these patterns or these distractions. And I want you to understand that chronic stress keeps the nervous system in survival mode. It's like always having your computer going. How often, here's a good one. How often have you kept your phone on and all of a sudden it starts acting up and not doing all the things that it's supposed to do, or you can't get to where you want to do? And all it takes is a simple act of turning it off, giving it a few seconds, and turning it back on. And that same thing happens with our computers. You know the difference between a reboot and a hard boot. Because when you take a hard boot and you totally shut that thing down just for a couple of minutes, a few minutes, what happens is your cache empties. And it allows all that mess and that junk to reset and get back to normal so that you can start functioning at high capacity again, or functioning in the way that you were created to function in again. And so that's why it's so important. And another thing we do is what we call multitasking. But what that really is task switching. And that creates what we call attention residue. And it's when your mind never fully releases that last task, what it does is it never restores. Those breaks don't allow it to restore. And a perfect example is when you're doing something, and then you think when you start doing something else that you're able to carry one in one side of your brain and one in the other. It doesn't happen. What really happens is you lose about 15 minutes of time in there because you're not fully focusing on anything. And so the things that you could have gotten done in full focus doesn't happen. And so we have two choices that we can make and that we could learn to practice. We could live our lives in survival mode, which most of us are doing right now anyway, and is the default that you have under stress. Can you tell I'm so passionate about this? I can't even talk. But that's what survival mode is. It means it's your default action when you're under stress. Or we can move and live in what if you want to think work is what I call your executive function mode, or what I call that when we're at home, that clarity and joy mode. And that second mode that I'm talking about feels like when you're present, when you're focused, when you're compassionate, creative, and steady. And so, what does multitasking look like? Or what I call task switching looks like? It's when you're half present. It's when you're sitting there at your computer and you're working and you answer your phone or you call someone that you know you needed to make a call for. And so your attention isn't really on that conversation that you're having with them. And your attention isn't really on that computer. And that's when you make mistakes. And that's when your conversation feels flat and draining, like just one more thing that you're doing because you had to do. But the thing is, what it could be when you're fully present, what that looks like is when you're sitting down there. And just like now, I'm sitting here and I'm looking at you and I'm talking to you. And my whole focus is on this conversation between me and you. And it's when it's in a conversation on the phone is when you hear that person's voice and you hear all the inflections and the things that normally when you're just watching them or just half in that conversation you totally miss. But now you're getting that, and suddenly that conversation feels different, and there's real connection and real energy and change exchange and even joy. That same phone call, that same time investment, but presence shifts it from a chore to a life giving pause. That's the difference. And so if you feel like this, even one phone call feels heavy, is not because you're bad at relationships. It's because stress and survival mode strips presence away. But staying there has a cost. And if every interaction drains you instead of restores you, you start living disconnected from people and from yourself. And what shows up most weeks is tiredness, decision fatigue, and procrastination and distraction. And if survival mode drains you, what actually refills you? I want to make this real for you. I want to take a moment and just make this real. I want us to look at what's happening. You know, our body, our nervous system shifts out of always on to presence. Our mind that's always clogged or has fog and the attention isn't there, that attention returns and choice feels possible again. In our relationships, those small tasks that always feel like a chore, what happens is you start connecting again when you start being more present. And now that 5 minutes of total presence now can save hours of your spinning later. And so just doing things like a 2 minutes pause with coffee in the morning, it starts you being grounded and not frantic. Or midday, stepping away when the screen starts to blur and just focus, just reset, take a walk away, have a conversation with someone and be totally present in that conversation. Or a small reset that you can do when you come home in the evenings is less snapping and more patience. And on the weekend, those micro resets can really change for you because you've learned to do them during the week. So the thing is, I want to give you, before I leave, some things that you can do. So I wanted to say a lot more, but I know this is just a break. So I want to go and walk you through a process right now, just so you know what it looks like or what it feels like to take that break and why it matters. So I've named the patterns for you. And now I want to prove to you that something different can really change. So here's another quick story. When I trained as a singer in the Air Force and growing up, I've been singing almost all my life. And so one of the hardest lessons for me was learning how to breathe correctly. Simple, right? Who doesn't know how to breathe? Well, I could just about bet you that right now you're probably breathing incorrectly. If I told you to take a deep breath, most of you would do it incorrectly. And the funny thing is, I learned that babies, small children, they already know how to breathe. They breathe correctly because what they do is they breathe from the diaphragm. And we lose that process as we get older. And I'm not sure, I guess I could research it, why that happens. I just don't remember. And I'm sure I knew back then. But we start breathing shallow and from the chest, right? And so, what I want you to do is understand that when you take a true diaphragm breath that floods your body, what it does is it floods your body with oxygen. And it tells your nervous system to stand down. Whoa, hold up. It interrupts that survival mode. It's like clicking that switch on and saying, hey, you're off. And that heart rate steadies and the brain clears and the energy shifts. And even just one or two breaths, that's all I'm asking. One or two breaths can act like a reset button. So if you're home, not if you're in your car, not if you're at work, but if you're home, I want you to lie on your back right now so that you can actually notice what I'm going to walk you through. If not, you can do a simple um, action of just putting your hand in your belly area. And I want you to notice naturally how your stomach rises and falls when you take a breath. And now I want you to take a deep breath with me. And when you take that deep breath, I want you to feel the stomach area or right above the stomach, how it just fills up and just pokes out. That's what I want you to reclaim. That's the kind of breath I want you to take in. And you could feel it even more when you breathe in through your nose. And I want you to inhale so your stomach rises and exhale slowly. That was a pause. You gave yourself one true breath. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to notice the shift. Even that tiny bit of tension that left, that tiny bit counts. A pause doesn't have to be hours. So I want to ask you if you're willing to tell me in the chat, what did you feel when you tried that, when you did that with me? It can start with one breath. That's using the power to reset your system anytime, in the middle of. And you know what? We'll talk more about weaving things into your daily life later. But for right now, let's just start with this one. And it's so much bigger than pausing for breath or walking down the hall. The power is in that moment, what you did is you made a choice to choose you, to choose life and what was better for you, the choice to notice what's actually your responsibility and what's not, the choice to relieve or to release. what was yours to take or fix or to step into or to take over, and what's not. We live as if everything depends on us, every deadline, every decision, every demand, but some things aren't yours to change. Some things aren't yours to take on, and some things aren't even yours to worry about. It's about agency. And agency begins when you start distinguishing, this is mine to act on and this is not. And that's where your stability grows, not from controlling everything, but from learning what's yours to choose and when to choose it. Your actions will always look different depending on the season. Some days the reset is stepping away for 5 minutes. Other days is saying no to that extra responsibility that drains you and walking away. I can't even say it. Sustainability comes from building on each reset, practicing stability so that you can see opportunities clearly and taking the action that best fits that moment. At work is saying no to a meeting that doesn't really need you and using that 30 minutes to step outside and breathe. At home, it means choosing not to fold laundry that minute that it comes out of the dryer and instead sitting with your coffee for 10 minutes. Not because everything is finished, but because you are choosing to pause. You're not powerless here. Let's get that straight. You're not at the mercy of exhaustion or patterns. You have agency. And every time you choose presence or say no or take a pause, you've strengthened that agency, yours. And the more you practice that choice, the more you'll see your energy reset in real time. Not because life got easier, but because you stopped giving it all away. So let's circle back to where we started. We talked about the three patterns of tiredness, decision fatigue, and procrastination. And at the beginning, those patterns felt like proof that you were just tired or maybe even failing. But now you see what they really are. You see them for what they really are. They're signals, signals that your body and your mind are begging for a pause. So lower your pace, lower your voice, whatever it is. Here's the truth. You don't have to wait for a vacation or a breakdown to reset. You can choose right in the middle of your life. And that might mean turning your phone off or turning it face down during dinner or taking one breath before answering an email, something simple as that, or stepping outside for 2 minutes and letting the sun hit your face. Each of those are small, but each of those are powerful because it proves something, that you're choosing you, and choice is where your power lies. So here's what I want you to know. And here's what I want you to tell me. What's one pause, one that you're willing to claim this week? And I want you to drop that in the chat. I don't want you to overthink it. Don't perfect it. Just name one pause that you're ready to take. And I see calm here. I'm glad that that's the choice that you chose for you this week. Thank you, majority media, for letting us know. So, what does calm look like for you? I'd love to know. This counts. This matters. This week is about proving that it's possible. And next week is about how we can hold on to it, how to anchor it so that it doesn't slip away the moment life gets noisy again. I want to thank you for letting me sit with you today, to be present with you today. And I don't take that lightly, that you allowed my voice in your space. If this has helped you breathe a little easier, share the replay with someone that you know needs to hear this and who needs that same reminder that you got today. You're not selfish for taking that space. What you are is you're wise enough and strong enough. And you know you're strong, but you're strong enough this time to stop before you collapse. I want to thank you again for being here with me. And until next time, I'm Mischelle, and you're on Break Time Live.